Hello everyone and welcome back to Paper Moon Journals. I'm so happy to be here today to show you how to make a beautiful quad fold card folio using the gorgeous Graphic 45 Let It Be 8x8 paper collection. Now while I'm using this paper, I encourage you to use whatever supplies you have on hand. It's all about being creative. I know Graphic 45 just released this paper collection in 12x12, and you could use that and some of the ephemera and things that come with that package. As a design team member for Sweet Pea Curiosity's Etsy shop, I've had the chance to work with their gorgeous mixed media Be Ephemera digital kit, and let me tell you, it's been so much fun. I made this folio, several folios, tons of cards. As an added option, I'll show you how you can personalize the project using digital art to create a truly unique design. You'll see how the project looks both with and without the digital ephemera. Before we dive in, I'll show you a sample of the card folio. This is the prototype we're going over that we'll be creating today. I wanted to thank returning subscribers for coming to my channel and to welcome new subscribers here. If you haven't met me, my name is Amy. I wanted to point out that this project is a modification of a design I shared last fall using Graphic 45 Steampunk Spells collection. I love Graphic 45 papers because in my opinion they're the most beautiful and suit my style perfectly. If you're interested, you can go grab the Steampunk Spells PDF over at my Etsy shop, and while we will be using the measurements from that in today's projects, don't worry, I'll be giving you all the measurements you need on screen. So we can take all of the digital ephemera out, and I'll show you in just a second here. I'll remove all of the digital ephemera. We'll put the other ephemera in its place, and you can see how it looks just as nice if you don't have access to a color printer to print that out. Although Sweet Pea Curiosities does have an Amazon store and sells some of their digital kits printed into pads. This is the 8x8 pad that I was using because I still had that in my stash hoard. Let's just call it what it is, my Graphic 45 paper hoard. I have a lot of the 8x8 pads. I just love their paper collections. So this is what I'll be using. I know they just released the 12x12. I don't know why you couldn't use the 12x12 and just use the smaller versions of images or crop things down where necessary. I think it would work just fine with the 12x12 papers. The other papers I used to coordinate with this were this yellow from my unicorn pad from Hobby Lobby. I also received a book of yellows from scrapbook.com, and of course that would also work well. I don't know if I'd received that yet when we were filming this, or maybe I just didn't remember. And then here's one of the digital sheets that I have that we'll be using to decorate some of the larger cards. From Sweet Pea Curiosities. All right, let's get started. I started by taking a sheet of 12x12 black card. Craft would be nice also. You want it pretty heavy duty, although it will become more sturdy as we add additional paper to it. And the first step is to glue these end to end. So it'll be 6 inches tall and just shy of 24 inches long, depending on how much overlap we have here. The next thing that we'll need is our scoring tool, or you can use a ruler and the back of a knife. I find the scoring board to be very useful. They're pretty affordable on Amazon, and I'm sure that they're available on eBay and places like that secondhand. They're not very heavy, and I bet some people buy them and never use them. You might be able to pick up one of those. So I'm looking at the instructions so I can get the scoring marks. for our folio and making some decisions about, what we're leaving out. I was accidentally using an older version of those folio instructions than the final one that is available on Etsy. So what we'll be doing here is we'll be scoring at 5 1/8, 5 1/4, and 5 1/2. So there's 3 score lines in that gusset. 10 1/2 and 11 inches. Then I fold it and move the 11 inch to the beginning and then score 5 1/2, 5 3/4, 10 3/4, and 11 inches. That's all we're really using from the construct the base section. We'll be skipping right down to the decoration after this. See how much faster and easier this got? All the steps we just skipped. I'd like to think this makes it beginner friendly. It also makes it, if you're time sensitive, it makes this project much faster. Cuts it about in half, maybe in a third of the time that it would take. I'm burnishing in all of the score lines and then we're ready to decorate. I don't quite remember how I decorated the first one, so let's get that out and take a look at that so that we can see how we want to decorate this one. So let's fold this open so that you can see that the front and back of the cover are actually in the middle when we fold it all the way open. That's the front and back cover there. And we'll fold ours open so that it looks the same and we can see where our front and back covers are supposed to be. So these are the papers that I'll be cutting. Again, you use whatever paper you have. And we jumped right down to the decoration phase. First, I'd like to cut out the image for the front. I cut this to 5 3/4 inches tall and then 5 inches wide. I actually cut it too wide and then trimmed it down, but you'll want to cut yours to only 5 inches wide. Again, I was using older instructions that ended up totally changing from the final. And then I cut this other piece to the same size. If you want to notch this for your pocket, you'll need a circle punch. I'm using a 2-inch circle punch. A smaller one would work also. And glue that down in a U shape so that we can tuck a tag in behind it. After I glue those two pieces down, I get the idea that I want to use a magnet to close these. And I think I might have already even put a magnet somewhere else to attach to this. I would give up on the magnet idea. I don't think it was very successful. And we'll just leave that there. I trimmed the stamps off. Just on either side and then left the border to the bottom of the paper where the stamps were on the paper and glued that in a U shape to make a pocket on the front. My little magnet slid slightly. Let's use yellow for both of these sections on ours, and we'll be cutting it to the same size, the same 5 inches wide by 5 3/4 inches tall. And again, depending on how good your scoring was, you might need to make some small adjustments. If you do, I wouldn't worry about it. So I'm cutting 2 that are 5 3/4 inch tall first, and then making sure that they're 5 inches wide. Or if I didn't, I'll be trimming them down because that's what's going to fit here. Yeah, I think I'd made that one too big, so I'll trim that down. And we can glue those down and cover up the magnets. But as I said, this part isn't very successful because there's magnets on both halves, and then all the stuff in all the pockets, it gets so full, the magnets never get a chance to really meet when we're actually done. So it turns out it's just a waste of magnets inside of here. Okay, so that is sort of the outside that folds in. And then I'm pairing the magnets up so I can make sure I know which side is magnetic and which side isn't. And so I know how to glue it down on the other side. If we didn't fill it so darn full, maybe this would have worked. Or if I'd put magnets in a different spot, maybe that would have worked. But I've got our sample laid out and I'm choosing the papers. I remember for the far right one, I just used scraps of whatever I had. Or the side with the pocket. I think I found another red scrap just like I used in the original, but the far right is just made from scraps. They'll all be 5 3/4 inches tall, and they should be 5 inches wide. I want to point out that in the written instructions, I always give width first and then height. I'm just telling you the order I'm cutting it out in, not the order that the instructions are written in. That way you can always keep your orientation upright if you know that I'm giving the width first. Once we get all of these papers glued down, the base construction is done and we're ready to start making tags, adding trim, and decorating. So isn't that exciting? Look how fast this goes. I did speed this part up twice as fast as it took me to glue the things down. I just think that's kind of boring. And since I'm not recommending the magnets that I used, I won't need to explain any of that either, I suppose. So the next step is we will jump forward to the tags. I used some scraps from offcuts of other projects. There are strips that are 2.5 inches wide of this same black construction paper that we're using to construct the base album. You'll see in a second here, I'll pull out some that I've already made. And what I did was I just cut them to be 6 inches tall, used my tag top punch, maybe added an eyelet and a bow. I'm going to organize my scraps and get my cut aparts all cut out and ready to go so we can start making the tags. I love making tags. So these tags I already prepared are 2.5 inches wide and 6 inches tall. I just put them inside my tag top punch for the scallop top, and then I added an eyelet and a bow. Since the tags are 2.5 inches wide, we want to cut these to 2.25 inches if we have it. But if I have a 2-inch scrap, I'll just use it and it'll be, more narrow than I would have liked. You also could go to a 1/16 of an inch if you chose. All right, let's make a couple at a time here. I'm just using scraps, so these might not be exactly the same. I like the stripy side. I think we'll use that for both of these. All we have to do is glue them down. I think making tags might be my favorite part. I made some pre-made ephemera with the digital artwork so that to save time. I know not everybody will be interested in that. So in the large pocket, I made a 4 by, is it a 3.5 by 5 with a tab on top, and then a 3 by 4 for inside the pocket, and then the big one inside the back is a 3.5 by 5.5 inch card. This little tag that I was using these dies that I got from Amazon. It was nested. I can link that in the description box. You could use those on the cover instead if you didn't have the digital art. And then I also used this red lace from Amazon also, probably. Most likely. And then here's a fun trick. To get a coordinating but more narrow strip of rickrack here is I just trimmed the scalloped border off the edge of the crocheted lace. So then I can use the full strip across the bottom and then use the little rickrack piece there. And if you didn't notch out your pocket, you could use that other little scrap across the top of the pocket, but we notched our pocket. So here's the 2 other pieces of ephemera I already had made in advance. For this project, it does need glitter and flat backs and decoration. And we haven't finished making our tags or the 3 little photo mats or journaling cards. So I used this cut apart inside the front cover. And then the other one I glue into a left loading pocket. Again, there was another little tag that I cut from my scraps. I actually cut 2 from the scrap and glued them back to back so they would be nice and sturdy. Let's find the same ephemera to load into the pocket. We've already made all the decisions, and it makes it kind of fun when you're making a second one and you copy it, because you don't have to think as hard about what's going to go where, and will it look nice, and will you like it. All those things have already been decided. When I cut apart my cut-aparts, I'm pretty sloppy, and then I fine-tune them with my scissors when I'm ready to use them. So that's a tuck spot there. And then inside, we need this cut apart to make a pocket here. Just left of center. And then we make a tag to go in there. I like this scrap, so we'll cut that down to 2 1/4 or at least 2 inches. And it looks like that perfectly by 4 inches long. And we get 2 of those, and we have 2. Huzzah! I love it when that works out, when my scrap cuts to just what I need. Isn't that nice? Just want to see if we can see that border or not. Sometimes I like the little black border around the edge. Ready to glue that down. And then also the one that I cut from leftover scraps. This is my second one, so I've already made things from scraps from the first project. So if you have any scraps left over and you have any small tag dies, or even if you don't, just cut them into a tag shape and add them to your pockets. Then I'll be using some border strips. I love the border strips. It's one of the many things I love about the Graphic 45 paper collections is that their cut apart pages frequently include these little border strip pieces. In addition to the cut aparts, they'll be on their sticker pages. Will be border. Oh, started to glue the back or the front instead of the back of that. I want this to go on the top. And unfortunately, I got that little black strip across the, oh, it's going to go down crooked and it's going to annoy me if I remember correctly. I don't notice that it dries crooked until later, and it bothers me. But maybe that was some other project. Nobody else notices these tiny little things, and I forget even until I'm editing the video. So I like this yellow border strip across the top of the page that we created the pocket for. That looks nice. Just gives everything a more polished, finished look, the pages, when we have the border strips. We'll add another one to the edge of the pocket, just like we did with our sample. That's why I have it sitting out, so that I won't forget to do any of the touches that I liked on the prototype. And then the digital image in the center back that was loose and floating, I'm actually pretty sure that's 3 3/4 by 5 3/4 inch piece, because it's the same size I ended up using to make cards and matting cards with later. Oh, I forgot to trim that until I added glue. This is how my scissors get so gross looking. This is how it happens. Okay, so if you didn't have the digital art, I would use that one on the front cover. First, let's look and see the size of the one I made before. I'll pop that up on screen. It looks like it is 4 1/4 inches wide and 3 inches tall. Is the right size to mat those cut aparts. The other thing is I will want my tab punch. You don't need a tab punch. You could use a circle punch and bend it in half. You could cut a rectangle, bend it in half, cut a rectangle, bend it in half, and then cut a little circle notch out of either side. I should show all the different ways to make tabs not using a punch. I love my punch. I think I bought it in 2023 or at the end. I loved it all the rest of 23, all of 24. It's still one of my favorite tools. That and my tag punch, which I also have out on the table. So you can see that. I got that from Amazon. I'll try to link. Why don't I just link my Amazon tools list and my Amazon supplies list in the description box. So I punched out all the tabs from scraps. It's another great way to bust your scraps. I want to put those on first. I don't want to space them out so that there's one on the left, one in the center, one in the right. Totally not necessary, but that's my plan, and I'm going to stick to it. You could also add another matting layer to your cut apart if you wanted. Make these slightly bigger. There's room in that pocket. You could make these bigger. I think they'd make great photo mats on the back side. And then on this one, there's room to write about the photo that you could put on the back. I think there's room for about 10 photos in these, I figured out at one point, depending on how you use it, maybe less. I took a nautical themed one that I had made and shared, and added a weekend getaway to Fort Bragg. I talked about it. Turns out I only took 5 photos and there was room for more, but it looked nice. I used the 5 photos in there, and they looked really nice. And I think this looks really nice. It makes them sturdy, having them on the backing, and then also adds interest. I think the tabs are fun. If I wasn't trying to keep this, I don't want to bulk it up. I want room to add photos and have this look really nice. And if you add 5 to 10 photos, this 10, it'll be pretty full, but will still look very nice. I don't want to overly bulk it up with bows and decorations. I love bows. I would love to add bows to everything in here, but I tried to keep the bows mostly on the outside. Tried to keep the bows to a minimum. And I do think I end up with one with a bow on the inside, but I tuck it into the gusset. I have it sticking into the gusset here so that there will be room. It won't prohibit adding photos. And I still think it looks nice without any closure. It's at this point that I realize the magnets are useless because there's so much stuff crammed between them. And then the pairs of magnets would reject each other if they could. So the other thing I did on the prototype was I had added a bunch of charms, and on the pieces I made in advance, I added charms to those. Which one's your favorite? I know we used different digitals in the one that we made, and I just love seeing them compared together at the end. I don't know about you, but it just fills me with joy. Seeing both of the projects so similar with just slight changes, and those slight changes also fill me with joy. And then here, let me show you our project that we made. If you don't have any digitals, access to print them out, you could send them to Staples or online color printing. You know, there are ways to do it without a printer. But let's say you don't want to deal with that. You have these beautiful scrapbooking papers or some other collection that you're using to make this project, in which case we just rotate that tag there, goes into the pocket from the ephemera. We use one of the cards under the tuck, and then the tag cut from scraps in the front, and the other of our 4 tags made in the front pocket. So you can see, you can totally, isn't it cute? I think it's still cute, but I do love the digital ephemera and how I can print it over and over. I will not run out of that. I wish I had digital graphic 45 papers so I could print out this 8x8 and make this as many times as I wanted, but that's not the case. I had just enough to make left over to make this project after making the prototype from it in my stash. It's part of the Smash Your Stash challenge hosted by Project 39 that I'm a part of with a bunch of other channels. There's almost a dozen channels involved. It's a year-long challenge where each month we pick a different size of paper pad and choose to smash it. For the month of March, I chose particularly 8x8 and 6x8, and then also 8x10 was a choice, because not everybody has those sizes. There were a few sizes included to try to fit what's in people's collection. And this little quad fold style is so cute with all the extra ephemera, even cuter maybe. Again, I'd love to know what you think. And here we have our finished quad fold card folio. It's perfect for holding photos, and I've made sure to keep it beginner friendly by simplifying the construction. No pockets, no closure or flip up elements, just a straightforward, beautiful design. Don't forget, I'll have links in the description box to Sweet Pea Curiosity's Etsy shop and this digital file in particular, as well as a link to the PDF to make the quad fold Steampunk Spells folio, so you'll get even more usefulness out of that digital project. I hope you actually give the tutorial a try, personalize this project, and make it your own using what you have. If you loved this project, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more fun tutorials. Happy crafting, and I can't wait to see your version of the quad fold card folio.